The tape we're using is a 3M automotive refinish masking tape as opposed to the painter's tape. When you install these, you're going to make minor adjustments on how you want it to hang and how you want this gap to fit. And if something's off on one end versus the other, you can give it a little push back up into spot and then readjust the tape. And this has got a little bit of a spring to it so that you're able to make those adjustments. But you're basically hanging this thing on here with the tape until that adhesive cures. So it sets up really fast. It's not like it's going to slide around, but you do want to give it a press into place, and then the adhesive starts to set up, and you got it in its final position. So one thing to point out in here, since we're in Leland's shop, we're really focused on the install of the bed system, but we need to have the flares installed, and so we're really temporarily putting these on. And so that's why the colors don't match, and that's why you see these are scratched up. Typically these would be painted and finished, similar to this van, and everything would look perfect once they get installed. But the reason that we're doing this is just so that we can get the bed system, and we've got some adjustments that we're gonna make later, and that's why you see us doing this process a little bit different. Okay, we're in a Sprinter 144, and I'm so excited we just put our new flare on the exterior. This is the extended flare with the turn overland window cut out. And as you can see here, if you've made it this far in your process, you've already cut a giant hole in your van. So this is what it looks like before the rest of the interior trim kit gets put in, and we just thought we wanted to show you what our awesome flares look like getting ready to sleep sideways. So one of the things that I'm working here with Leland on, this is the new trim ring that we're using with the bed system. And you can see how it installs now with the flare. But here's what I want to be able to show you is like, how are you going to attach this to the van? So what you have in your kit from us is a template for 1/4 inch plywood that is what's going to go behind this. This is actually going to be installed right here, right? And that just attaches directly to the metal in the van. So we're going to put this together, but I just want to give you an idea what this looks like. You can decide if you want to attach it from the back or if you want to screw it in from the front, and then this goes into place with the trim ring installed into the 1/4 inch ply. All right, so we just marked the spots where we're going to screw this birch board into the flare. We're actually going to front mount this so you'll be able to see the screws, but you could mount it from the back as well. And then all that Leland did here was to measure this 1 inch off of the corners and mark it, and then measured the midpoint here and then 1 inch back in order to figure out where we're gonna put these screws. So a few different ideas on how to finish these. These are a gel-coated trim ring. It's a finished condition product. And so you might decide that you wanna have this birch board stained, just natural wood, and have this trim ring in the gray gel coat that it comes with. Or you might decide that you want to wrap these both in some sort of fabric or other finishing materials, in which case you would want to wrap this trim ring first, and you would want to wrap this birch board, and then you would attach the two and secure it into place. You probably aren't going to put it together like this and then try to finish it in a material. One thing to note when you're attaching this birch board onto the flares, you want to do the corners first, and then you're going to come back and do the center. The other thing you'll see Leland doing here is he puts the screw in, he backs it off a little bit, and then he finishes it back up.
That'll pull the two surfaces together nice and tight. So we've basically marked all the 4 corners and 4 fastening points within the field. So more or less everything's on center and 1 inch in from each corner. That'll give us a nice even distribution when we fasten the panel to the wall.
Hey Leland, you want to give him the pro tip on the drill bit?
Yeah, a good pro tip, because nobody should drill a hole through their van, is to check before you drill how long your drill bit is. And we always use a short bit chucked into our drills, even if that means cutting a bit in half. And I still always check it, even though I know it's not going to go through the side of the van.
I hate when I have a hole in the van.
Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. So this metal structure, first, best to do with 2 guys. Second, the bottom edge is going to line up with right where this starts to fold back down, or starts to angle back in. That's where the bottom edge of this structural steel is going to land. Okay, everybody, you can see that we've got the sheet metal we're holding up. It is slightly below the cutout. It's aligned with the mark that we put on the van over there. And we're gonna go ahead and drill this now, then we will put the rivet in. We'll actually rivet it, then we're gonna go together and just get it straight. But that's the reference point for this OG. You can see it is below this cutout because we're trying to get it flush with the bottom edge of the trim ring with the bed rail. It'll make sense here in a second, but that's the alignment. The other question I get frequently is, why does this sheet metal go past this seam here? And that's so that the finish panels, you can flush out the finish panels. If you're not putting finish panels on your van here, you can go ahead and cut this off, but otherwise you're gonna want to leave that there so you can flush out those finish panels. And one other thing to point out, we just riveted the four corners. You can see we got a little Rust-Oleum that's painted on the inside, just where if you got bare metal, you want to have a little Rust-Oleum to prevent rust. Prevent rent too, if you couldn't use enough of it. And then we also got a couple rivets that we're putting in here just to keep this thing from rattling as it's going down the road. But this is why I want to be able to show you where this fits relative to the Space Saver trim ring that fits up here that you see in the prior video. This is for the OG trim ring. This is where the sheet metal goes. And think of the upside here, if you don't already have an air compressor and a rivet gun, you get to go buy some. So those are always fun.
You also can just use a hand riveter, which is pretty inexpensive and does the same job. If you're not doing a ton of these, a hand rivet gun works just fine.
Not nearly as fun.
Not nearly as fun. Not as satisfying, that's for sure. And these don't need to be perfect. This is simply reinforcement for the bed itself. So you can have them about as equal as your eye will allow. If you prefer, you can measure it out. But most applications with this stuff, since it's all hidden, someone with a good eye can get a nice layout with the rivets. So there's a good point of reference when you're setting the finished panel to your trim ring. The bottom edge of the trim ring is going to have the nice straight cut with the corners at the bottom, whereas the top edge is going to be slightly taller. And that'll help you identify the orientation. These are all fit to match the contour of the flare. So they're not going to fit any other way, but as you see it here. So we're referencing that top edge here with the top of the panel. Just like that, it butts right up to it.
So one of the things that we recommend, we provide the product for as well, is to be able to insulate the inside of the flare. And you'll notice that this is the raw fiberglass, but if you use the 1/4 inch close-cell foam and the Marathon fabric that we provide, then you get a nice tight fit around this trim ring all the way around. Okay, we get questions all the time about why do you have to put a spacer behind the bed rail? And here is the short answer. One, we're not exactly sure exactly how high you're going to mount the van. The van gets wider as you go lower, so I'm not sure exactly where you're going to put your bed system. The second thing is we're not exactly sure how thick you're going to build out the walls of your van. So we make the bed platforms 66.5 inches long. Now when you build it out the way we have here, this is the structural sheet metal riveted to the van wall. This is 1/4 inch birch board to mount the trim rings. It has 1/4 inch foam and the Marathon fabric over the top of that. This from wall to wall is 67.5 inches wide. So in this application, we've got a 1 inch gap between the width of the van from the build out and the bed platforms. And that's why we're going to use a 1/2 inch spacer behind the bed rail. Now we're going to mount this flush with the bottom edge of the trim ring, and the reason we do that is so that everything is flush across here. You might wonder, why am I going to have this spacer behind here and it's not finished? You can finish it any way you want. Paint it black, wrap it in fabric, or it'll just go away when you put your mattress over it. The reference point here to be able to mount these bed rails is 7/8 of an inch, and that's off the top of the trim ring. If there's ever a bit of a gap between your birch board and the bottom of the trim ring here, use the trim ring so that the mattress ends up being flush we're drilling with a 3/16 bit to get it started, and then we're just running this through with a little star bit. Check it out, our bed rail is in on the driver's side. And so when you do that, you'll notice that it's gonna pull some of that trim ring right up into the flare. So where there was a gap before, would have tightened it up. We left a little bit of space in here just so that when you do finish this out with 1/4" closed cell foam, that it'll cinch up tight but not be too tight. It's alive. So we've got the power running down here to a battery just so that we could test the setup here and show you how it looks when it's installed and lit up. But obviously you're gonna run the wires to your main power source or some temporary power source, or to the gerbil wheel, wherever you keep that. Hey everybody, we're in the Flarespace van. We just finished the install of our bed system, and I wanted to show you a couple things on a 144 using the OG trim rings, the original shape trim rings. Okay, this is the Flarespace bedding. It's our comforter, our fitted sheet. This is an Arctic turn window, and this, I'm gonna fold the mattress back out of the way. And you can see here, this is the OG trim ring. Okay, we attached the OG trim ring to the wall using 1/4" birch board, right? That's what this stuff is, okay? And you can see that it is 1/4" birch board with 1/4" closed cell foam. This is the spacer we used, and then this is the bed platform. It goes all the way across the van. Looks the same on the other side. This is the OG trim ring, the 1/4" birch board, the spacer. Listen, this bed panel is 66.5 inches long. The gap from birch board to birch board was 67.5, so we put this 1/2" spacer in here. The other thing that I want to point out is that we installed this using the 4 star bolts that's in the package. I did not riv nut these. These are just the 4 star bolts, and you can see them all the way down there. And listen, this thing's not going anywhere. I hear some concerns occasionally that if this is bolted at the bottom, this is going to create more of a hinge effect and it's going to pull off the wall. I promise you that that is not going to happen. This is straight down force on the top of this. It's just shear loading on top of this bolt. There is no torque on the top of this because the bed panel is secure on the other side. And because it is snug up in here, there's no way it's pulling off, right? So that's the scoop. That's what we did. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm really stoked by our project today. Here's what we accomplished to end up putting our bed in place with our awesome Flarespace mattress. So in the course of about 4 or 5 hours, with a lunch break and a bunch of messing around and having a good time, we put the flares on the exterior. It'd be funny if you put them on the interior. We put the flares on, and then we were able to take the birch board and get it trimmed to the right shape. We attached the trim rings. Then we put the metal, structural metal up here that supports the bed rails. We put the trim rings into place. We attached the bed rails. We put the bed platform on, and the mattress fits flush across the space. It's our beautiful 5-inch organic cotton wrapped soy-based memory foam. So if you just bought your $60,000 van and you're looking to go out and use it, you can use it this weekend. Just take 1 day off, do the work that we just did, and you can put that all together in a relatively short amount of time. That's the project. Let's give it a try. Oh, that's one great mattress.